Well, hello and welcome to the Church Office Podcast. My name is Gavin Smith and it's a joy to welcome you to this Church Administration Podcast. We love talking about the work that happens behind the scenes. We're passionate for it, and my special guest today is Anna Wood. How are you? Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you, and Anna's travelled down from Liverpool to spend a couple of days here in Wales, so thanks for making the effort to be here.
Oh, you are very welcome. It's definitely my pleasure to be here. It's been great so far.
It's been great, and it's lovely to kind of have Anna with us, and I love going to visit other churches. You learn so much about just kind of wandering around the place saying, what do you do there? What do you do here? And how do you do that? And hopefully will be a bit of a blessing to you, hopefully.
Oh, definitely. Already there's things I've seen clocked and recorded videos of and sent messages back to people in Liverpool saying, we need to do this.
It's fun, isn't it? I love doing that stuff. So it's a joy to have her, and I can't let her go home without getting on the podcast and asking her. So today's podcast we started to kind of reviewing the survey with Lewis, and had a great opportunity to chat to him about kind of how we started working together and some of the challenges, some of the joys, and just enjoying the gospel together. And it was lovely to kind of look at the scriptures together about what was encouraging us in our roles. And today Anna and I are picking up the topic of good habits of a church administrator. And do you know what? It is like there's loads of content here, isn't there?
There's an awful lot, yeah.
We had over 60 people, kind of send in their answers. So thank you if you participated in this, and maybe maybe yours will feature here. And if we don't get around to everyone's, then apologies. But there is just such a wealth of good habits here. Yeah. Our next podcast, Anna and I are going to do together on the bad habits. So we're going to be talking about those next time on the podcast. So, that'll be interesting. I've probably got more bad habits than good habits.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we really need the feedback to help with that. I can probably do a podcast just on my own.
My own bad habits.
Yeah.
It's good. So let's jump into some of this. We've got them all in front of us. We've kind of had a little look through it, and there's just some really, really good and insightful things. The first one I picked up was this. Somebody sent in saying, point number 1, seek to clarify the vision. Ask lots of why questions. Really get to grips with what you're doing and how that activity connects to the gospel and the vision. So that was number 1. Number 2 was relationships matter. Habit of engaging with people, regularly completing tasks. I talked to one church that had this kind of collision hour where everyone came together. It was a big church with like 40 staff, and they come together for this 1 hour, and it's like collision, and everyone, instead of writing an email, you go and talk to somebody.
That's literally what they call it, collision hour. Okay.
And so just that, we can do loads of emails in our jobs, but actually just getting to people was really important. And then the third one is creating a framework for your week. So what are some of your rhythms and patterns? And that's good. What are some of your rhythms, Anna? What do you guys do? You have regular stuff and meetings and touch points?
Yeah, we do. We tend to have a couple of days in the week where there are specific meetings that take place between different teams. So I'll meet with my boss, my manager, and maybe one or two others first thing on a Monday to sort of set the tone of the working week after Sunday. And then we'll usually have a full staff meeting across the whole organisation. There's a few different churches that I work with in our setup. So we all get together, have lunch together, so we get that time to actually fellowship and have those relational aspects, as well as then having functional meeting time as well. And then, other times in the week we have other meetings, either one-to-one or as smaller staff groups. And those are really important, I think. I think that when they are cancelled for any reason, you miss them. Yeah. And I think that's actually quite a positive thing, because it helps to create a structure for your week, but equally doesn't dictate all of your working hours. You still have flexibility around that in order to get the tasks done. So that balance, the one you've mentioned there about engaging with people, but also completing tasks. You want to get that balance right. You want to engage with your team. You want to engage with your colleagues. But also you do need to get certain jobs done and get those ticked off your list.
And rhythms and stuff like that, we're talking about with part-time staff, this is harder again, isn't it? It really is a challenge.
It is, yeah. I think for part-time staff, they do have less time available to do the role that they're doing. The hope would be that their role is achievable in those part-time hours. But as soon as you do put in specific meetings or touch points, that does take away from their practical work
to complete
time,
stuff,
to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So I think, as particularly as full-time member of staff, I need to be mindful of that when I'm planning what I'm doing, and as do all the other people in my organisation who are full-time. We need to just not expect part-time staff to go above and beyond for free, but also we need to make sure they do have those opportunities to meet together, touch points as well, because it's really valuable for them as well. So a bit of a balancing act, I guess.
It is. And we were chatting over lunch, weren't we, just about culture and what are some of the inputs, and those weekly meetings are big cultural inputs to wanting this to be a culture of grace, and we want our part-time staff to experience that in the same way that our full-time staff do. And so we really do need to go, I'd rather take stuff away from the practical tasks to give them that time.
Absolutely.
It needs a bit of thought, doesn't it?
It does. And I do an annual review of all of our kind of policy paperwork type stuff in the summer, and I was doing that 2 weeks ago, and one of the things I noticed was in one of our statements is that we have a staff community of certain things that we expect staff to be engaged with in terms of meetings and coming together, but not just formal meetings. And the phrasing in that document actually was full-time staff. It didn't specify all staff, and I've changed it and said actually all staff need to be part of that staff community. It needs to be open to everybody. How it looks might be different, and we have to be flexible within that, and we can't necessarily include everybody in everything, but all staff should have that opportunity to be part of the community. It's really important to set that culture.
It's good. Right, another one, pray. Starting with pray. And there's loads that start there, and I think that's a great instinct, isn't it? We want to pray. Have a good calendar and a good task list, communicate well with others, find effective tools that can do that. 3 really good points there.
Absolutely, and the prayer aspect appears quite a few times on the feedback, doesn't it, across the whole thing here. I think it's a temptation through no intentional fault, but to forget that actually ultimately why we're doing our jobs is to serve the church and serve God. And so prayer should be our starting point each day. Prayer should be our starting point for each project or whatever it is we're working on. But it's so incredibly easy to not quite remember to do that at the right time. So, having that reminder is super helpful. And it's definitely got to be a good habit to be in. It's got to be a good one to try and achieve. Yeah,
it's been great. I was talking to a staff member this week, and we'll often kind of like spend a bit of time at the start reflecting on Sunday, and suddenly, like right at the start of the meeting, there's this kind of overwhelming thing of like all this. We've got so many things here to give thanks for, and that's kind of where we start. Is just this happened and this happened, and we were able to finish this task, and this person came along, and so I love that kind of anthem that starts our meetings. We're going right. Let's just give thanks here.
Absolutely,
of all that God's doing amongst us, and I
think that's so valuable, and that's what makes the difference between working for a church and working not for a church. That's what the culture's got to be doing. But I think there's also that aspect of you're working on your own on a task. For me, at my kitchen table, that's where my office space is at the moment. And I need to be doing that by myself as well. That's a really good habit for me to try and remember to do, not just in the context with other people. Actually start that task in prayer with God, one-on-one. It's a good thing.
Great. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and Lewis shared a quote. I can't remember the quote. I'll have to dig it out and see if we can put it on the website. But he was saying, whenever you're prompted to pray, stop in whatever you're doing and just spend some time praying. And that's really helpful. The kind of what Paul says, isn't he, about praying unendingly and ceasingly. It's like, how do I do that in a work situation? But I kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, actually, whenever I'm prompted to pray, let's stop and let's do that.
That's a really good idea.
Whether it's something for Thanksgiving, or whether it's just a need, or whether it's just like, Lord help, I'm really struggling here. All of that is happening. So I love that instinct of people saying, I want this to become, or even is a good habit, and that's just something to be celebrated right across all these answers, which is great.
Definitely.
People in here saying, maintain your relationship with Jesus. again, so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we can get lost in the doing and the tasks, and
That's it.
not spend time actually just loving and enjoying the gospel for ourselves.
Absolutely. And, and that's especially true for things that you're providing for the rest of the church to be engaging with God and engaging with Jesus. Sunday mornings, it can be a bit of a challenge. You've got half a mind on something which you've got to get done, or you've noticed something which needs doing, and you're sat in the Sunday service, and that's not the time for that role, that task. Or you are in role and you are doing something practical, but you're still in church. That is super important to, again, be intentional about. And more than likely it's going to be continuing in that intentionality. It's probably never going to become completely sorted, but that's not always a bad thing either.
No,
being reminded
right.
of those. So yeah,
it's lovely, isn't it? I love going to visit other churches when you're on holiday or something, and you go and you can go in there and you don't have to think about anything. You've got no responsibility, and it's just this, like, I don't know why, but you just encounter God, don't you, in these kind of things. And I want that to be a more regular experience at our church than just something that we do, over holidays when we're away from responsibility. So
yeah, that's definitely a good aim to have.
We're getting into bad habits there, isn't it? That kind of leans into overthinking.
I guess we're
overworking,
double-edged side. Yeah,
being bothered about things that actually we shouldn't really be bothered about. So look, sorry, we've already gone there.
Sorry.
What else have we got in here?
I really like the references to delegation. I think
yes.
I think that's a really good habit to get into.
Yeah.
I'm not brilliant at it, but I think having a mind of planning your delegation, actually thinking who can I get on board to help with X, Y, or Z, or who has shown an interest or who hasn't, but yet I need them to help anyway.
Yeah.
Having that ability to delegate is a really good habit to have. Because not only does it allow you to hopefully do your role better because you're not trying to do everything yourself, it also gives opportunity for the people to be used for whatever role it is you're delegating. And it might be small, it might be big, but either of those can be really helpful for people being delegated to as well. It doesn't have to feel like, I often would think, I'm delegating, I'm making people's lives worse because I'm asking them to do more. But actually sometimes it can be really equipping for them to have that opportunity. So I think delegation is a really good habit to work towards.
I think that's right. I think that's a really, really good point. He's got other things on here: being good at listening to people, communicating is coming up a lot here, and being good at that, and so those things are all going to help the process, serve those around us. So those are really good things. Good diary management, that just turns up all the time.
Someone specifically said also diarise your breaks as well, which is a good idea. And to ensure people, you do actually take a break, or make sure you eat your lunch without working through it, unless that's what you want to do because you're being flexible. There are pros and cons to both approaches, but definitely diary management is important.
It's good. One practical thing on here is one lady sent in saying that on a Sunday she'll ask people, because people come, don't they, with their thoughts, their observations, their requests, and they all come on Sundays when we're all gathered together, and she'll say to people, look, would you email me rather than just have told me? And she's gotten into that good habit, and actually you come into your inbox and you've got 4 or 5 things, rather than feel like you carried the burden on
that's
Sunday.
A really good idea. That is a really good idea.
Kind of stopping people and saying, hang on, email me that so I can deal with it on Monday. Sort of protecting yourself in that sense. So that sounds good.
That does sound good. It allows it to be cleaner in terms of when it's mentioned, but also allows you not to be the one responsible for forgetting. Because it's busy on a Sunday and it's easy to not quite remember all the things that are mentioned. So really
I'm trying to get into the habit of saying to people, please email me, because I don't know if you can identify this listener as a church administrator, but I get WhatsApps, I get messages on Facebook, you get these kind of Snapchats sometimes, random things, and I'm like, I can't keep up with all of it. You get an Instagram message and I'm like, there are so many ways that it's coming at you that it's just like, give me one.
Aren't there? Yeah.
Give me one. Email me or pick up the phone and talk to me. I'd much prefer that. I'm a phone person, I'm afraid.
Well, that's good. I'm more of a message person probably, but that's because I don't want to disturb somebody with the phone. Yeah. So that's possibly why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can relate to the fact that it's much easier if you've got. So we just tend to have email or WhatsApp. Those are the two primary communication means, and it does make it easier that there's only two to keep track of.
To keep in, because you do miss things. It's easy to miss things and let folk down and whatever else.
And that's the last thing we all want to do.
Yeah, it's so true. It's true. Do as much planning in advance as you can. I think that's a great habit. I love the fact that church administrators are really, really good. This is a real strength of ours at sharing materials.
Yes.
At not trying to reinvent the wheel, but actually, people are really generous with the stuff that they've got and they've created. That's a blessing, isn't it?
Oh, it's such a blessing. I mean, I don't know where I'd be without the generosity of some of the people that have helped me out along the way, including you. There's so much good work going on in so many churches across the country, and being able to connect that together and just say, I really don't know where to start with this. Has anyone got any experience in that, or is there anything out there which maybe could be a bit of a guide? It's just so helpful to be in a good habit of being open-handed with what we've got. And if we can be open-handed, then hopefully that then comes back in abundance the other direction in the times when we need it too. So and it really is having like a kingdom mindset, isn't it? Yes.
Dave Harvey's got a brilliant book on partnerships, and I think it's chapter 5. He talks about kingdom mindset, and I think church administrators are really good at this. Yeah, happy to share resources, happy to get behind other people, happy to see people be successful. And so I love that, and I want to do a little shout out here to Becky Thomas, who's recently given like 4 or 5 documents to the church office and said, like, here's a conflict policy, here's a food hygiene policy. I'm thinking, I don't have any of these. Well, I have the conflict one, but not the food hygiene. And she's just happy to give them away. We've templated them up. They're on the website that you can access now. And so you might be listening to this. If you've got something that you've excelled in and God's blessed you in, and you've documented it in some way and you think it could be a blessing for others, and maybe you're not in a denomination and you'd like to share it, then get in contact with the church office. I'm sure there is a place that we can put other policies that can serve other people on the site. We certainly don't want it to be, all my policies, and my policies are the greatest policies of all time, and they're not. So
there's definitely lots of value there already, but definitely widening that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah,
I think we can.
Yeah.
We can learn from each other, and so so that is that's a great one. I love that.
Yeah. Boundaries between your work and personal life, that's quite a good one to bear in mind as well, and having those good boundaries. I think that's something which sometimes can be tricky, but also quite important to make sure that we don't allow too much of the work to dominate too much of personal life. So if you've got an awareness of that from day to day, then that'll hopefully pay dividends in both work and personal lives.
And we really have got to take responsibility, and we ourselves, to do that. No one else is going to protect us in that way. Our pastors are going to care for us. They might capture something when there's crisis, or there is just a sheer overload and capacity issue. But that ongoing, just daily, weekly protection of lines drawing. And we are going to go into bad habits, but we love to overwork. We're doing more hours than we need to. These things are just, so important that actually let's be proactive. I want to create a good habit of just making sure that, I get home at the time that I need to get home, serve the family, that there's good boundaries in place for that, and good accountability. I've got one previous trustee who's constantly will come up to me and say, I haven't seen you in the meeting for the last week, what were you up to, and it's like, well, we've got a call out for a kid, and so-and-so was sick, and, we were trying to work this through with parents, and you're like, make sure next week you're in there for the worship and the teaching, and I love the fact that he does that, and I love the fact that he pulls me up on that and wants to care for me. So
well, that's it. It's done from a place of love and care, isn't it? It's not done from a place of criticism. in that negative sense that criticism can be.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do need to be reminded of, the important things need to remain important.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely important there.
Yeah. I think there's good things in here about organising workflows, creating things that work. Someone's written document. So 3 good habits. We can all relate to that. Respecting the difference in others was one of them. Teamwork, inclusivity. So that's interesting. Someone's kind of grouped those 3 together.
Yeah, they're definitely less obvious good habits, but when you think it through, actually, they are really good habits to actually work well as a team. That does mean that you've got to include people from different mindsets to yours, perhaps, or different skill sets to yours, perhaps, and that doesn't make them better or worse, or less useful or more useful, but brings around a real fruitfulness, a real opportunity to have a really fruitful team in front of you. So it's a great habit to try and work on.
It's so important, isn't it, for us to see our roles as not just delivering, because we really aren't about delivering. We are about enabling others to deliver. And I've used that illustration before, where we on the one side we've got vision and direction, which our leaders are setting, our elders are setting, and then on the other side we have the delivery of what we're trying to do. And I often describe our role as kind of being in that gap in the middle, trying to bring together delivery and vision together, so that those who are in vision know actually what it takes to deliver. And there's that respect, there's that understanding, there's that teamwork as pastoral and administrative staff working together. And those who are delivering can make the connection to how it, what they're doing, what they're being asked to do, just connects to the gospel. And I think I love part of our role is just saying to people, thank you for doing that. What you are doing makes a difference to the gospel in this way. You may not even realize it, but actually you are serving this church and serving us to preach this gospel and to take this gospel out there. And people don't always see it. They don't always make those connections. And
someone's actually put down here to connect the practical work of ministry to the gospel, making sure those connections are made in our minds, I guess. And then if we can illustrate those to others, then that's even better, isn't it, in terms of people seeing the value in the work that's trying to be done.
And I love that someone puts in here just about encouragement,
Yes.
Be an avid encourager. And I love that. Just, people don't make the connections to the gospel and they don't realise they're doing a good job, and they just come and do a particular role that they've been asked to do, and they don't see it. And so let's go, get out there every week. And I always try and think, one of the practices that I do is after church on Sunday, who can I text or who can I email on Monday morning, or I'm going to send some chocolates, or I'm going to do something just because somebody's gone over and above to bless Sunday or to serve somebody else, have gone out of their way, and how can we point that out and thank people? And I want that to be part of our culture. I want our staff to be really good and quick at saying, do you know what, thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the things that came out of my first appraisal when I started working in this role, it's only been a couple of years since I started, and I was able to say hand on heart that I'd never been as encouraged in my work as I had been in that past year. And that's after 17 years in my old job, I genuinely had been more encouraged in that one year than I had been in any of the years previously. And I think that's a really important culture to be setting in any church environment. We want people to feel that what they are doing is worthwhile and is valued. And it might not be perfect, and that's one of the things that come through here in terms of good habits, is recognising that we're not necessarily always trying to strive for perfection, but if we've done something which is good and valuable and is making a difference, then that's still brilliant, and that's still to be celebrated and encouraged. But on that sort of perfection note, I think it is a thing to be mindful of, balancing really wanting to do a good job and do it really well, but also recognising that it doesn't always have to be perfect, because
Yeah.
there may be some trade-off with that. It might be that it's your time,
Yeah.
which you're spending too much of on that one thing when you don't really need to.
Yeah.
Or an example this week for me, someone came to me from a different church saying, "Oh, I've got this situation and they've done this for me, but I'm not sure whether it's, I don't know, what do you think about this?" And they wanted some feedback on a graphic, and I'm not creative, so I feel like it kind of looks okay, and and I was able to say, well, I think this one's probably better than that one, but I'm, and they were like, yeah, but they're not in a good place at the moment, so I don't really want to go back and say, could you improve it, because it might really damage their confidence. And actually, we came to the conclusion that what they'd done was still usable. It was still good. It wasn't maybe as perfect as they would have liked it to have been, but it was still really useful, and it will do the job.
Yeah, that's right.
And in that, we've protected that other person from feeling like they've not done a good job. Because even if they were told, it's great, could you just change this? At the moment, their headspace is such that would be received really badly. So it's about that balance, isn't it, of wanting to know your team or know people you're working with well, and manage people in that way well, I guess, to actually help them. So perfectionism isn't always an asset.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, no, that's really good. It is, people think I might sit behind a desk all day and kind of push out paper and that, but most of the work is sitting, chatting to people and encouraging people and identifying different gifts and trying to support people into different roles that they can serve in the church, and it is a real people skill. And so one of our good habits has got to be related to people, isn't it? Because it is such a big aspect. Well, these are great. There's so much there, isn't there? And
there is loads.
I loved reading through it, and I think people have got some great habits. They've got some great instincts, and it's lovely to kind of read through. Anything else to finish on? Any other?
Probably one which I can resonate with as one that I need to install as a good habit of mine is don't be afraid to say no.
Yes.
I think that's something which when you want to do a good job, when you're wanting to help people as much as you possibly can, it's really easy to say yes and then regret it. So actually a good habit is being able to discern when saying no is a good idea. So, and it's for the right, it needs to be for the right reasons and all of that sort of thing. But if we can make our peace with the fact that we're not super people, we can't do everything and be everything. Then actually we can probably do the jobs we do much better as a result.
That's right.
So I think that's a really helpful one for me to try and adopt as a good habit for me.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, Lewis will often say to me, "You never really say yes or no straight away." And I was like, "Oh, is this going to be an encouragement?" And he's like, "You always seem to ask these clarifying questions, and it's so frustrating because I just want you to tell me, is it a yes or is it a no?" And I'm trying to kind of clarify exactly,
what you're saying yes or no to.
Yeah, I mean, what does that actually? When you say that, what do you actually mean? And that crossover between getting into a pastor's head and what they're asking you and what they're thinking, are two different things sometimes. So, that kind of caution, isn't it? But delegating is important. I remember one of my kids saying to me, "Dad, I love coming to work with you." I was like, "All right." He said, "All you do all day long is tell people what to do. You don't do any work yourself." I was like, all right, well, is there some truth in that or not? Trying to kind of work that out. And part of it is true. Part of it is you're chatting to people and you're encouraging them and you want them to flourish and you want them to be a success. And you're connecting people to jobs and to tasks and to service and which creates discipleship and opportunities. And then you're giving feedback and you're working rotas and teams and there's different dynamics that you're having to do and all of that. And it is. I love it, and I guess for me that's one of the the great parts of the job is just being able to serve people and that every member ministry is just everyone playing their part and finding a place where they fit and serve is just wonderful.
Definitely, there's a real value there.
Anna, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We've done fairly well at keeping away from, the kind of bad habits. There's still
too
time.
Tempting when you look at the good ones and realise you're not doing them.
There's quite a lot of self-reflection going on here. I am actually really terrible, and there's a lot of really good administrators out here who've got some great habits, which I need to adopt. So it's been really interesting. And if you've sent in information on the survey, then thank you so much for doing that, because these things are great just to celebrate. We were celebrating just God's word and God's grace at work in the ministry. And, this is just a real practical thing. What are practical things are people doing that are good habits that help them do their work? I hope you picked up some ideas today that you can take away, chew over and implement into your own life. So, thanks for doing that. We shall tackle the bad ones on the next podcast.
I'll look forward to it.
Well, thank you for connecting with the podcast today for the church office. We really appreciate it. And if you've got time to write a review, give us 5 stars or whatever you think we deserve, we'd love your feedback and recommendations. If there's anything that the church office can do to serve you, or if we can connect you to a policy or an article or another podcast, we've done 62 now, believe it or not. I can't believe it. Of all different topics. I was thinking, how did that happen? So please connect in and hopefully you'll find something that will be a blessing to you. All right, until next time, goodbye.
Bye.